do so. Bud Rigoulot.
Thank you. I'm sure we've all heard the words, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. Mr. Toastmasters, fellow Toastmasters, honored guest. One morning 5 years ago, I woke up and I couldn't talk anymore. I lost my voice. My wife was ecstatic. The thought of me not being able to talk or put my foot in my mouth anymore, she loved that idea. Well, as time went on, it became worse. Going in, we find out I had severe throat cancer. And the only way I was able to change that was to go through chemo and then have surgery. And so 8 months later, I had surgery, and they told me afterwards if I got 20, 30% of my voice back, I'd be lucky. I worked hard for months, and finally, this is what I have 5 years later. I think it's pretty cool. Everybody says I sound like Nick Nolte. Sometimes it's difficult to talk, but I enjoy it. And then life goes on, and I go back to my normal life. And one day I'm hit by a car in the parking lot. And not thinking much about it, I keep going on. And then after a while, it was so painful, I go in and they said, well, we need to replace your knee. We're going to do a knee replacement. It's a piece of cake. I've done 100,000 of them. His famous last words. Over the next 9 months, I lived in a hospital, went through 4 knees, 8, 9 surgeries. And the day came where the doctor looked at me on the bed, laying on the bed, and he says, we have no choice. We either cut your leg off tomorrow or you die. But how could I tell that beautiful woman that was standing next to him, who 22 years earlier I said till death do us part, that I'd already gave up a month ago? I wanted to die. The excruciating pain of an infection in the bone, the life I was living now compared to what I had, this isn't a life that I want. But see, I told her till death do us part. But I couldn't find the courage to tell her goodbye that night. And I went on and I let him cut my leg off the next morning. And when I went home, I kept thinking, I'll find that courage in myself. I will work at it to say goodbye. Every day for 5 months, I sat in a dark room in a wheelchair like an old man, shriveled up, with no purpose. Didn't need to get up anymore out of bed. So each day I would try to build that courage up inside of me to say what I wanted to say and to do what I wanted to do. But after a while, that courage, I found out was a weakness. The fact that I wanted to give up when everybody else wanted me to stick around is what held me together and kept me going. And after 5, 6 months, I decided I needed something to do in my life. So my wife asked me, would you please come to the school where I work and volunteer with these kids? We have all these kids that have anger issues, and they fight out. They would love you because you're a robot, you're a transformer. They would think you're cool. She was right. They loved me. I'd go down the halls and they'd high-five me. They'd always want to hold my hand so I wouldn't fall because I was new on a leg. I had to start all over again on learning how to walk. They were always there for me. Well, 3 weeks into volunteering at this school, I met this little boy. He was 9 years old. He was in the cafeteria. He grabbed his lunch tray and he went over and he sat on a table. And he takes his pizza and he wraps it up in a napkin, really nice, and then he takes his french fries and he wraps them up, puts them in his backpack, along with the 2 apple sauces and the milk, thinking maybe he was sick or saving it for later. I asked him, I says, do you not feel good? He looked up at me with tears in his eyes. He said, no, I was able to eat breakfast this morning. My sister hasn't eaten since yesterday, and I'm taking this home for her. I said, well, where's your sister? I said, well, get her a lunch. And he looked up at me, still crying. He said, no, you don't understand. My sister's 3 years old and we live in a car. My dad hasn't been able to find a job. At that moment, I felt so selfish. At that moment, it changed my life. Because see, my whole life I thought about me and my surroundings, not what was outside of it, what was best for me. And a 9-year-old boy sat there and taught me a lesson in 15 seconds that there's more to life than what's about you. He cared more for his sister eating that day than he did himself eating his lunch. I went, got him another lunch that day. And every day after that, for the next 6 weeks, I make sure my wife's refrigerator in her office was full of Lunchables. Because, see, he liked these Lunchables, but it had to be a certain Lunchable. Had to have the chocolate chip cookie in it. And let me tell you, I went to Fred Meyer's, Albertsons, Safeways, but I made sure they were there. 6 weeks later, his dad had found a job, and they were able to get a home. And he was transferred to another school. But the last time I saw him, he was smiling. Something this kid never did. See, he was always looking down out of shame and embarrassment. But that still was not enough. I still needed something when I went home. I needed purpose. I needed to understand why I lost my leg. For so long, I thought I'd done something wrong in my life. And I could not figure out what I'd done to go through throat cancer and what I'd done to be the one person out of 100,000 that they cut my leg off. And then I met that boy. And then I started thinking about other people. And I looked into what happens with kids in schools and how many kids are homeless that go to school. And again, I was ashamed of myself that I did not even know this before then. There's 48,000 kids this year that go to school every day. They're homeless. 48,000 in the state of Washington alone. See, this state has this great program the government does called McKinney-Vento. And what they do is mandated, where they take and give each state $995,000 a year to take care of these kids. Well, if you do the math, at 48,000 kids at 365 days a year, it's $28 a year per child. $28 a year. But excuse me, somebody incarcerated, 3 meals in a warm bed at night, we spend $100,000 a year. When did the value of our children become so little that we've given up on them? So I started what is now called Quarters for Kids. It's a nonprofit foundation. We specialize with homeless kids in school districts. We go around, we work with McKinney-Vento, we work with kids, we help families, but we help the kids in school stay in school to get an education, because the problem is a homeless kid has a 65% chance of graduating, as to where our kids have an 85 to 95%. I remember being in high school. It was hard enough for me to stay at school every day, and I had a better life than most of these kids I see. After we started Quarters for Kids, we went out and we did drives, raising money. But it was so hard to get the awareness to people. People did not want to accept the fact that we had these problems in our communities. And it would be so easy for people to help to do it. So this summer, on June 24th, I rode a recumbent bike from Spanaway, Washington to Eureka, California over 6 weeks. 650 miles, raising money for homeless kids and families. And then I came home and we decided there was things that we needed to do around here each day. I volunteer in schools. I help kids every day. I work with these kids. Just this last week, I was in Tacoma. There was 2 boys. They were not going to be able to play in the choir for Christmas because they were homeless and they didn't have the right outfit. And they called me. And I spent half the day at Walmart trying to find the sizes for these kids and got these outfits over to them. That was the most satisfaction, gratification. Best Christmas present I ever had was given to that child, them children, and to somebody else. They don't know who I am. It wasn't advertising course for kids of what we do. It was 2 kids that needed to be able to go on stage tomorrow because they say if you can keep homeless kids in activities in school like sports or choir, they have a better chance of staying in school instead of giving up. So they work on that. This Saturday night in the Bethel School District, we're holding a fundraiser for the Bethel District and the McKinney-Vento program. Because just in the little community I live in, we have 651 homeless kids. And the sad part is 3 years ago, I never would have believed it. I didn't know it. But now I do. Now I see it. This fundraiser we are having, we have professional speakers come in, Toastmasters members are involved, improv, comedy, everything, food. Everything's free to bring awareness and to raise money for kids. Like the title to my speech says, your change will change the world. It's so easy to give at holiday times. And most people do it. It's so grateful that people do take their time and they give to kids and stuff. It's harder once Christmas is over and winter sets in for people to reach out and help. And that's where we come in and we help. The fact is we have a website, we have a button you hit. You tell us where you would like that money to go and where it should be spent. And that's where it goes. We work straight with schools, with their McKinney-Vento program, raising money for homeless kids. So now, missing a leg, I get up every morning. I have a purpose. It's a little harder for me to get ready in the morning than maybe it was 3 years ago. I have to mentally prepare myself to put it on. And then when I walk out the door, I'm reminded every step I take, how it drives down into my bone and the way I have to walk. But I know that when I get up. But we have a mission and we have a job to do with Chorus for Kids. My job is to please help kids that need our help. There's so many of them that cannot pick up their bootstrap, pull their boots up, and change their world like we can. They need our help. They expect our help. So I'm asking you, next time you think about donating somewhere, think of the kids in the schools that are homeless, that are trying to get an education, and reach out to them. Maybe buy them an outfit or a Christmas present. Thank you. Gosh.